right, welcome back to the Sophia Files. We have a great episode coming up for you guys. We're talking, I'm going kind of straight in and they'll get everyone introduced. We're talking soul transfers, walk-ins, so like spiritual walk-ins, twin flames, and bloodline contracts. And again, we always have our panel of psychic mediums that I love very much. I'll let y'all introduce yourself, Danica, Ariel, and Melissa.
Hi, I'm Danica Olsen with Goldilocksglimmers, and I am a psychic medium and I specialize more in mediumship.
Perfect.
Hello, my name is Ariel, and I am of the Lunarclair, and I am an intuitive psychic medium.
And my name is Melissa. I do connect with loved ones on the other side, but it feels like my calling is a little more energy, healing energy based. And here lately, it's been a lot of spiritual ministry, but definitely intuitive and feeling feelings. So that comes across really strong. But yeah, my company is, oh my gosh, Menopause Rising Phoenix Medium. I can't believe I forgot my own business name. Rising Phoenix Medium. I'm in the Pacific Northwest. So right now that is Northwest in Washington State.
Yay! So let's get this ball rolling. And I thought I'm toying with the idea of, well, no, they're saying leave it alone. Okay, never mind. Okay, so I'm going to start with Ariel, and I want to hear. Oh, and if you're new to the podcast, what we do is we remote view or we channel from our guides. We put our own opinions aside, and we try to do the work that way, and then we'll talk about it after. So, Ariel, I want to see what your team provides for us under the topic of soul transfer.
But one of the big things that they are pointing out about it is almost the sense of plucking one's soul and moving it to that way, like another soul can serve a higher purpose, and it's not usually used in the best way. It feels a lot more negative than positive. I'm trying to see like where the souls go that they transfer, and it's almost like they're put into jars on a rack for later, and that might not be anytime soon. That might be like years from now. They're almost presenting the idea also of certain souls being in the beginning process. It's more of an in and out. So I don't feel that every post is viable for a soul transfer. It almost comes from a questioning state too, because the way that it's presented is to not damage the soul right away. It's too much trauma on, like, if you were to just do it and leave it for so long. So I feel like that's why they're bringing it more back to the in and out process.
No, that makes total sense. And Melissa, what do you feel around it?
So initially they were kind of drawing me towards the transfer like of a soul into like a new infant, like before you give birth. But then they also said, probably more germane to this conversation, is the concept of some humans become so traumatized that the soul needs the intensive care unit. And so it can be an issue of it's not a exit point per se. It's not like they necessarily are ready for that life to end, but there's a need for some intensive treatment, and sometimes that necessitates a soul switch. So an identified soul, it's not a walk-in, it's an identified soul that matches with that body and that lifetime can take in, and then the soul that was originally there goes and gets some really heavy duty treatment, so to speak.
Well, it's interesting because I would actually say your definition, which is perfect, but I would call, and we'll talk about more because that, to me, that is a walk-in. But we'll talk about that more, but in the positive aspect. So I'll delineate what I believe the difference is, but I love, like, who knows that I'm perceiving it correctly. But that was actually what I would say almost is a perfect definition of what the process of a walk-in would be. It's more of a saviorship. Whereas, but we'll keep talking about that. Danica, what did you get?
I'm being shown, like, to kind of piggyback on your lines of a soul going through something really traumatic, that it's almost like it gets so, I would say, like bogged down with, say, grief or whatever it's going through, that it feels like it's part of the same soul that's, say, on the other side that comes and almost like I'm being shown like like the defibrillators or whatever
Yes.
that they put
Yeah.
on you to like bring you back to life. It's almost like the same soul that's not all filling up the vessel right now comes and like revives it, like adds more soul to it to like get it going again until it can kind of like fade out a little bit more. If that makes sense.
It
That's what I'm
totally
being
does.
shown.
So
Yeah.
that's the same thing as what with Melissa, what y'all are describing to me is almost textbook definition of the walk-in process. And I guess an important delineation I perceive is walk-in feels to me more like part of the apparatus that we agree to. And I'll break. Whereas a soul transfer to me is a, technically speaking, disallowed thing. Like we aren't supposed to be able to bop through different people's bodies. So to me, the difference of a soul transfer is as I am, forcing your soul physically out of your body in some form or fashion, usually through torture, making the vessel so uncomfortable that you electively leave it, and then encapsulating you in that process somehow and utilizing your vessel. But there is a very negative, unforeseeable issue with that is kind of interesting. In the process of a soul transfer, say I'm your mother, right? And I'm a high witch. And I have birthed you for the sole purpose of using your vessel when I get old, right? That's the plan. You're a genetic match. I've raised you, so you're just mirrors of me in a lot of ways. That's what we kind of sometimes can be. So you're a perfect match in theory. But what nobody anticipates is that the soul is a frequency of you, and your memories situate themselves. They're really held more in the body and the brain. So if I pop into your vessel, I have to take a significant amount of energetic time differentiating between what are your memories and what are mine. I believe what they're saying right now is a lot of people fail this process. They go crazy or they forget their initial knowingness of who they are. So it really starts to look more like almost a amnesiatic soul, because you're not in your vessel anymore because I forced you out. So it's a stripping of they're showing it almost like a stripping of a screw. You didn't do what you wanted to do. You didn't do what you thought you did. So it takes a lot of mental conditioning to get that process done correctly. I don't know how to say that better. And I feel my guys are kind of laughing because they're saying there are many times where that is underestimated how strong of a process it'll be. So dumb occultists will try and make it happen and then fail it, and that's its own can of worms. Because then they just said you have two disembodied energies. The reason that's different than a walk-in to me, energetically, and the reason that I don't chime in on the remote viewing aspect of this is just because I know these topics so deeply, and so it would be kind of like false of me to try and, you know what I'm saying? The walk-in process is an allowed aspect. It's actually why if you ever see angelic energy in a guideship form around a person, you know that they had a traumatic childhood. That's what you know. Because angelic energies are protectors of fate and destiny, really, functions of it, and then also protectors of the children. So that's the only reason that you'd see them. Now, then the question would be, well, why would there not be angelic presence when an adult would go through severe amount of displacing trauma? And the reality with that is that's a different avenue of protection. So basically, walk-in is like, think about a bunch of souls who are on standby for an overbooked plane. They are prepared and ready for the service of alleviating the soul from having to continue forward its contracts while still honoring the contracts that I've made with Danica, right? Because my timeline was set. We have contracts. We said we were going to have kids together. So if you dip out at 14, you fuck my stuff up too. So walk-in souls are those agreements that are made when we basically decide we're done with this lifetime without making the choice of suicidality. They come in. Here's what's fascinating. Terry has a client who died and then was resuscitated and has not been the same since. Her temperament's not the same. Things are off, and she knows it. it's the first time Terry said she's ever seen this, so that's why I always say, like, you never fucking know what you're gonna see, is that she died. A contract was technically, in this quick time of her death, inked out to where there was going to be a slip in. So now there is an additional soul within her vessel that is very confused about a couple things. Why it's there, what's going on with it. So now you have an amnesiac, kind of traumatized by this experience soul who doesn't know why it's made manifest in the physical because it can't remember the agreements made as it dropped in, because we never can. And then you have the original soul, which is the original host of the body, and they're kind of battling for a little bit of dominion. And I asked Terry, I said, what do you do in the experience where this happens? And she said, and this is a process that takes time, just like you would clear a house of an energy that forgot it's dead or forgot why it's there, you have to counsel that soul and say, it takes no energy to pop back on the other side, because she's afraid to leave now. She does it like we all are. We don't want to die. That soul aspect doesn't want to leave, doesn't know it's easy, doesn't know how to do it. So she has to kind of get with it and perform spiritual psychology, spiritual ministry to the part of the soul that does not have legal right to the vessel, because it's also not doing anything wrong. It came in because it was like, well, all these other things were cleared. I was the name that was called on standby. What do you mean I don't have a seat? That type of energy. But it is very much for our protection. It's very much an allowed process of spiritual surrender a little bit. It's like, God, this life was too much. I need to surrender, and I still want to honor the people I've made contracts with. The other aspect is soul transfer, because of its illegal standing, so to speak. It is also one of those, like, it's a high crime. Like, if you participate in that, that's going to stick with you for that's a different type. That's like killing or rape. You know, these high crimes where you really will deal with that somewhere. Initiating a soul transfer, grooming for it, trying to make that happen, performing it, like there are spiritual legal ramifications for it. It's theft. It's literally grand theft auto. I want to see if there anything else you guys feel about that.
No.
Or that differential, I guess. Now I have the question of this. If you guys are sitting with the client and you realize that the soul in front of you is a walk-in, what do we do with that information?
Do we need to do anything with that information? If there's not, like you said, the jockeying for the body, if that's a walk-in, it's almost like, do I really need to know when you say that you're a female, are you really female? Like, I don't feel like that's,
No. Right. Well, it's informative to what you're reading. Because what you have, there's a natural consequence to being a walk-in, which is basically like, well, I never really learned how to drive this car. And by the way, too, most walk-ins happen in the teenage years or right after a high pain point, right? But most of the ones that will be sitting in front, so they don't have an awareness to it, but they're going to mismanage the car till they die a little bit. They're going to feel confused. They're going to feel like they don't understand why these things are happening to them. They're going to feel directionless potentially. There's just it's a misfit. So what you can start to do is minister to them without saying that they are a walk-in, minister to them the ideas of exploration that maybe cement the idea that it's okay if you never feel like you have a place. Start to pound home the things that they're going to suffer through by the proxy of what they are without saying what you're sensing. Which is, by the way, you don't belong to this body, because that doesn't benefit anyone. Like, there's no, okay.
I feel like it almost caused an existential crisis inside, and it's like, well, what do you mean?
Exactly.
What do you mean I don't belong here? Then that's when it goes awry very quickly.
Well, but I always think about this too with that topic. It's like, dang, we are at least like well taken care of on some level. Like, that's really cool that if this is too much, we have the option of doing this aspect of it. And it's just like, it's interesting. It's just like the fail safe of, if you're dropping 20 feet, you exit your body before it's like, we have these things that are very protective, which always makes me remember that our reality leans 51% in the light. It's just like little things like this where I'm like, okay, thank God. That's cool. I like that. All right. The topic of twin flame. So let's see what we feel around this. And I'm going to start with Melissa.
So I have always kind of had this notion, and what they're telling me is that it's weird. I feel like what they're saying is that it's a soul that you are, I hate to be this, it is like a twin that you have. It's like not a part of your soul. It is somebody else that you are just so that close to. But what I'm trying to find out is, does it mean that you can never be in the same lifetimes together? And it feels like that is the case. Like it is like they're always on the other side.
You are very much onto something that is not talked about. I am very happy with that. Yeah, and I'll explain that in a minute. And this is what you just said. Also, I hope that anytime you talk anywhere, that is also, I look for what you just said in proof of people if they're gifted or not. Because twin flames are not sold that way. They're not sold in the function that they actually are working with. Ariel, what do you feel?
I feel like I was feeling or seeing a literal flame. Two flames coming out of the same candle, intertwined. One always burning hotter than the other, which seems physically impossible. It's weird because I don't really see the wax melting on the candle. It's still whole.
No, I love that. And what about you, Danica?
This is interesting. It feels like, so I heard that a twin flame is somebody that you do have, it feels like harder lessons that you make a contract with them, but it does feel like separated. I don't know how to explain it. Like there's like a tether to them, but you're not like working on it together in the same space. I don't know how else to explain that.
It makes total sense. I'm trying to get them because they're talking about a bunch of shit real quick, and I need them to kind of get this together. Okay, so I always see souls like raindrops out of a cloud, but then every cloud goes into a conglomerate of its own, right? Because it goes from like a super soul down to an oversoul, down to individuated souls, and then the last fracture that you participate in, almost like mitosis, before you have your individuation and your journeys begin, or we always do have a pairing, the masculine and the feminine. And so it doesn't mean that one is more the other. It's not really like that, but you have a creation comes in twos almost is what and I know creation comes in threes, but in this sense they're speaking about it is there's always the front and the back side or the left and the right side, and it's not delineating mentality or ethics. But when you first drop in as a soul, that is the beginning first time. That's how we get new souls. You never drop down as a first time soul again until you finish. So imagine then that your last mitosis occurs and you're starting at this beginning spot. This twin flame is almost sort of the love of your life, this knowingness of self similarity, and you experience that unity almost like your best friend for the first couple of lifetimes, right? You get that. I don't know why you get that. It's almost kind of like, why wouldn't we're doing this for the first time? Why wouldn't we do it together? And then you go, if there's a circle where you meet on the other side, you start to part like this. So for the intermediary parts of your soul process, you won't really ever see them. And if you do come into contact with them, it is almost always hellacious. You're not ready to balance that energy. It is in some ways the opposite of you. It's also very similar as you. But for you to really integrate, like in Chinese astrology, you have an enemy sign. What that means is every time you're around a person of that energy, you're going to be agitated by them. They're going to irritate you. They're exactly what you have not mastered in yourself is what you're going to feel like. So now imagine that and you're sleeping with them. And they're everything that you just get enraged, like you try to control. It brings out the worst of us when we haven't developed the ability to enjoy and really participate in a unity that is the opposite of you. But then the sign that you're closing down your lifetimes is the return of your twin flame. And then you just better hope that you're wise enough and aware enough to really manage that, because otherwise you're just, that's going to create friction, and that happens a lot. And it doesn't mean everything's perfect, but it is the origin starter with you. It's like it's like home team got back together. Some of your original contract makers will be with you. But that's why when you go opposite ways or when you don't see each other, the way I see this talked about all the time is there most people in the metaphysical world are interchanging and mistaking just the idea of a soul contract or a soul mate, right? Because 99% of us are not going to encounter our twin flames if we're not done with this incarnation process. It would literally be like trying to bring a bomb into your life. You're not ready. It's not going to cause anything good. You're going to tear each other apart trying to be together. But you can't because your soul's not mature enough to make it work. Like, there's all these issues with it. And the unfairness, this is the glitching in our reality, is that sometimes you fight for it so hard, you do wind up seeing them, meeting them, whatever. And it's hard. That's a really, really hard thing to endure when you're not prepared for it. They just said it can tank lifetimes for people because they have all these contracts. Then they behold their twin flame. Then they just start chasing that because that feels more like home than anything else can. And now you're abdicating your lifetime because you're not fulfilling any of the goals you said you were going to do, and maybe more than anything, if there's a lot of pain and friction being caused, you're just generating kind of some karmic stuff you're going to have to clear later. It's like, they just said it's like sending somebody who's never skied before down the advanced slope. You're going to hurt yourself more than you're going to do anything good. This is a personal question I have about it that I don't have an answer quite yet. When you were talking about the burning and the candles not melting, and then when you were talking about, I'm pointing at y'all like, Ariel and Danica, it's like, what is the spiritual value of them if we are connected? Like, you're never not connected, but what's the value of like you being over on the other side of the reality, working out your shit? I don't know why I threw that pen. And then me being over, like, what, because is it like a defensive thing? Like, do we spiritually come to each other's rescue? Like, what is that? Why is there a value to that? Melissa, I'll ask you first, because I don't have an answer. I've never asked that before.
So what I'm being told is that so the concept is you never know how strong you are until you're tested. So this other, not half of the soul, but I guess you could say other half of the soul on the other side does affect you. It's in your sphere of influence. And so those qualities can manifest for you as if a little bit like it's almost as if you can kind of draw from that when you need it.
Okay.
And that's, yeah, they're giving me a little chills. So like that is one of the ways that you kind of put words on this. It's almost like that won't happen until it's absolutely necessary. But once it happens, it's like you are a little bit in the knowing, and being in the knowing can be painful. Once you feel like I've got something that was of me, I have got, and where did it come from? It's almost like you can be a little bit obsessed with it. But the good thing is that it's there to, with each other. Like if yours was on the other side, you're in this modal realm, and your twin flame on the other side this is really going down the rabbit hole. They're like, okay, they can be living in a different dimension and experiencing some things. So it goes both ways. Mm-hmm. So you can feel like a little pull towards that because you're sharing some quality that they are needing, is almost like this life force energy. And that can feel like a longing. And I've actually experienced this now that they're talking about it. But yes, it can be like, for years, I was almost obsessed with this idea that mine was on the other side. Like I knew it. I could feel it. I sometimes had what I thought were like, not, I guess, out of body, like dream experiences, meeting them on the other side. And it almost derailed my marriage. Almost to the point where it's like I was so obsessed with this, knowing that it was on the other side, knowing that it was something really powerful. It was a long time before I could just in my mind say, okay, I have to let you go. I have to start crying. I have to stop this because I have a life. I have a life here.
Well, and I love that. That's very interesting. Danica, what do you feel around? What's the point of it all?
Well, when I was feeling into it earlier, it was like that tether is like you can communicate, or I don't know another word for it. It's more than communicate, almost like telepathic or something. But it's helpful for both of you is what I felt. That it was, if you're struggling or whatever, it was almost like a connection that you had that felt like home that you could go to, and almost like receive help or comfort or whatever and then like come back. I don't know how else to explain that.
And Ariel, how do you feel?
Feeling kind of dizzy. So maybe this is an interesting topic for us. I was visualizing a few things. One of the ones that really stuck though was if we're musicians starting at nothing, we don't know how to play our instruments, and we're learning and practicing, mastering, and auditioning for, as a musician does, plays for different venues, auditions for different groups. And it's like looking for the other member of your symphony. And I believe that some musicians achieve that. Like, I can't remember the name of the group, but there's one, and they just had such a bond musically, but it caused issues in their marriage. And so they had to, like, the group split up and they never sang together again. But just the tone of the singing, because how would you describe, like, with singers, having the different tones, the richness doesn't always mesh well with everybody. But then you do find your perfect partner and just creates that, I guess, that harmony. But have you seen that show, Super 8? I believe it's called Super 8, where there are these individuals and they're connected to other individuals telepathically. And they are of, like, all over the world. But say if one was in an instance where they were in a fight, they were able to channel the other, and they, I don't know, it's going back into like the swapping, like they kind of like swapped in for that person, but it just went into a few like romantic relationships also. And it just is that feeling of really not being able to do anything with it, because if you're not done with your lessons, it's just too painful.
Well, and would it make sense to have your training wheels on you forever? Because I almost feel like twin flames are like training wheels. And then also like, yay, you graduated gifts. Like they're gifts to us in this really unique way, but it's only in these very unique situations. Man, and that kills me. I hate this phrase. The twin flame readings.
Yeah.
Just don't get me started. Okay.
Well, I wonder why it's pushed so much too. Why people look for their twin flame when they don't really have an understanding of what it is deep down.
Well, they don't know what you don't know. I think they just, some people get hung up in the pretty version of what they think it is, and then become enamored with it, and just want somebody to tell them what they want to hear.
The worst thing that you'll ever get in a reading, and this is going to happen to every single freaking one of you at some point. Someone sits down and says, I know he's my twin flame, and you just got to fucking rock with it. And you can't say he's not, like, you'll be guided to know how to handle it. Either you just say, you're crazy, because I've done that too. I'm like, I don't know why you think that's true, but I'm going to just say, if there was a delusion that's in play, that's one of them. But then I've also been in circumstances where I was not allowed to burst that disillusion. And that's more challenging. And this is not the same, but kind of the same, but very interesting. And also, by the way, too, as we were talking about that, it's like, dang, look, another area where we get help. Like, we have guides, we've got soulmates, we've got people in our soul tribe, and then across the fucking universe somewhere, we have the other part of our soul. Like, we have a lot of assistance we can pull from, which I think is very beautiful. Because the whole lie we're sold on is how separated we are. And it's like, shit, I mean, if you're not calling on your guides, can you call on your half? Yes. If you're not calling on your guides, can you call on your ancestors? Yes. If you're not calling your ancestors, can you call on just energy that loves you, that's still living with you? Yes. Like, it's like we have fonts of energy that if we knew where to look for them, where to hold them when we were hurting, we'd be a lot less stressed out about stuff that stresses us out. Bloodline contracts. I don't really know where we're going to go with this, so we're going to rock it out. And actually, because they're going to let me go first because I don't know anything about it. Okay, so the first thing they're talking about is they're talking about reasons of being. So it's almost like if there was a grandfather head to the family of souls that were going to, like what Ariel does, like minister to grief, right? They're showing almost like that on some level, you're going to, because that's the nature of your soul, you're going to come in through a bloodline that supports that by its own ancestral actions. Because they're showing us that our souls pick the bloodline. The bloodline doesn't have really much to do with our souls, but they do have to do with tether mechanisms to gifts and to propensities of a spiritual nature, or like with Danica having sort of that path around grid work, because that's the nature of your soul. You would have to come through a lineage that had been doing that a lot, so your soul could pair with the knowledge of the DNA of the body. So that's one way that they're talking about bloodline contracts. For instance, if Danica went off the deep end and decided she was going to start bombing everything, which is the opposite of upholding a grid, or let's say that she loses her mind and starts desecrating the land, you would be against your bloodline contracts. So that's what they're saying. That's kind of what they're showing. And I don't know if this is true. Like, I feel shaky about saying it that definitively, but that's what they're saying about it. Ariel, what do you feel?
I was feeling a few things. One of them is blood related. Okay, blood contracts, right? So it's almost a decree, vow, oath. I'm seeing it being written down and then like literally sealed with blood. I see like the slitting of the hand, like pressing into the paper, it dissolves into the paper, boom, contract. And one of the things that I was wondering was with these, like, how do souls get assigned to these bloodlines, right? And I believe what they were showing me was kind of in a uniform fashion, where if you don't have one, you almost like drop into an experience and seeing how it affects you. And I believe that those where are the most impactful, that is where you're assigned to. Because if we're dropping in, multiple times, I don't really feel like we get assigned one right off the bat. It takes several lifetimes in order for it to be assigned to you.
And you just, yes. And real quick, the reason for that is because the older your soul becomes, the more intentional you are about everything. And it takes you longer to plan them because you have to wait for certain things to align on the physical earth plane to get done the lessons you need. That's one part. But yeah, I mean, like, you're spot on with that aspect of why we don't get assigned them. It's like, no, eventually I'm going to start needing to help people. I need a bloodline that supports that. Danica, what do you feel?
So I'm being shown like a baseball team, that is like your ancestors, your lineage, and that each soul has their unique skills that they specialize in. They're all here to do the same thing, work on the same goals, the same mission, but that each soul has their own unique and specialized way of fulfilling the purpose that they're here to fulfill.
And what about you, Melissa?
Yeah, so the first thing they showed me is they made the analogy of like the sorting hat, like you can have Ravenclaw or Slytherin or whatever. So it's like you have to align your soul and your purpose has to align with a bloodline. And so it is you can have been originally part of this bloodline before a purpose or an intention or a contract with that bloodline was made. So you can just keep coming back into it subsequently because you were there at the beginning, or you have to have made and they're saying qualified. You had to somehow align with, if you wanted to join later on in your soul progression, there would have to be an extraordinary reason or qualification to be able to do that, because it doesn't necessarily line up with what your entire, like, to get to your highest self. This bloodline may not get you there, but it might be that you wanted to do this for a short time and that's not preferred.
No, that makes sense. That's interesting. We also get sent to cure bloodlines, to purify them. There is also that where we will go in almost like a infiltration. And so that's one of the things too. I almost want to say there are poisons and cures in bloodlines, and that there is effort to eradicate certain ones, which means that there are gifts that travel through the DNA. So that's because they're showing it as that is one of the ways you're hunted. So it seems almost like if we think of gifts as oxygen, there are those that are just more oxygen rich and those ones that aren't. And maybe you get brought in because you agree to help enrich a bloodline, or maybe you get involved to cure it, or on the other aspect of it, or you get sent in to ruin it, depending on like if you're from a negative family, because they have a very occulted different process of how they get souls assigned, right? They're on a different playbook. And so what will happen with them, and I know this to be true, you know that wall of jars you were talking about? They pull from that jar, that wall. And so then you know, say I'm into dark occult things, my person is as well. We already escort instead of making room for a new soul or a soul of the light to drop in this way, in the natural way, we'll just insert it. And I know we've talked about that before on the podcast, where you can really re-traumatize the same soul so that reduces enough to be able to be a good host. Like that's one of the processes they use. Well, in that way, that's one of the issues around some in vitro stuff. Because if I'm trying to poison your bloodline, that would be an easy and great way to participate in a process that would maybe be normally a sanctified process. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say without saying it? Okay. So I do know that I do very much know that happens. Yeah. And they were, I don't remember writing this down, correcting bloodlines, but I talked about that. Ooh, this is fun. Okay. You know how we round robin around each other and do that? So let's figure out if we can feel some of Danica's bloodline contracts. And then we'll move through everybody because that could be fun. And let me see. It's weird because it's very hard for me right now to delineate the difference between your soul contracts. So I'm trying to figure out how to catch the right frequency I'm looking for. It's because everything I just got a full download of are all your soul contracts. So I'm trying to figure out how to isolate just the bloodline. Well, one of them would have been your fertility, that you were always, the physical vessel was intended to have children. You had to have agreed to that when you got there to even be a part. So that's one of them. I feel that there is some purification that's going up that has something to do with the mother line. So I feel like if there were mistakes that were made on the mother line, you do have some responsibilities to heal those, which I feel you're doing a good job of. I don't feel that there's anything misaligned with it, but it does feel that you have the words responsibility. So why am I throwing pencils and pens? The energy is very heightened for me today. So I'll say that. But there's one that's being elusive. And give me a second. Oh, I just heard why this is so hard. These are protected by ancestors. That is so weird. I just realized why I'm not, because I was getting this information like it was being fed to me, and that's not how I receive my intuition ever. So I was like, what? Why am I having to submit almost like a missive about what I want? I felt like that was weird. I like that though. Ariel, what do you feel? Hopefully this is easier for you, because damn, that felt hard for me. I was like, what am I doing? I've never done that before.
Maybe it is more, I don't have experience. I guess I have a hard time differentiating. Also, I just kind of see everything. One of the things that I was seeing was like the desecrated land, and if you imagine like the Pied Piper, you're like a little Pied Piper frolicking, and then it's like the ground is changing beneath you. But they also had brought something in your voice, the tonality of it. Does your family kind of talk the same?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was one of the things that I was feeling, was the tone of your voice, and then something else about the hair also. And it's very small. Imagine like when Rapunzel cuts a piece of her hair and it turns brunette underneath it. So it is something that is passed down.
And then notice the name of your business it refers to almost the hair. That's so funny.
And that was just a download that I received. That's why it's named that.
I love that. That's awesome. Melissa, do you feel anything of blood contract relation?
So what I tried to do was to get on the physical lineage and go straight back. And so what I was feeling is that sort of if you were going to need to find something that you would align with for this lineage, it would be druidic in nature, very much of the earth, and trying to put the words on it. Living life with purity and purifying the earth and ministering to those in your community is what it felt like. So that was sort of like the beginning. And you have come in multiple times into this bloodline because that is what is fulfilling for your soul. Like you absolutely agree with that way of living. Like those things that are important to this bloodline mesh with what is important to you. So you almost like started at the beginning of this bloodline and you keep coming back into it.
Almost to keep it, and I felt very strongly to keep the ways true,
Mhm.
whatever that means. Because I do not feel a heavy presence of your contracts in both generations above you, actually. But then it's very weird because when I go into Melissa's bloodline, it feels like you have this is what I'm feeling, like almost a bulldog aggression to atoning for other people in the lineage. And it's almost like you're the one, it's almost like they sent brute strength. They're like, no one else can do that. Like you're there balancing. And because of the paths that you're taking, wearing that blood, so to speak, it is actually through the balance that you're bringing, it's bringing relief to the bloodline, which is very interesting.
That's what I've been feeling. Yeah.
That's wild. And it feels a little bit, it's mirroring some things that I experience, that I feel are true. That's weird. I did not expect that to be what I felt. Danica, what do you feel around Melissa's bloodline contracts?
I definitely, every time I go into you, there's something to do with like a warrior. I don't know what it is. It's like you're here fighting for almost like to reclaim, but I don't know exactly what it is. Like I'm not getting like a definite thing, but it's like reclaiming something from, it's almost like it started out clean. I don't know how else to say that. And then something got messed up and now you're here to like reclaim it, is what it feels like.
That is exactly, yes. Because so when I said balance, it felt like when I say that you were sent in like on a frontline thing, what I missed or couldn't articulate is exactly that. It is a rectification of some kind. It is a reclamation. That's an Ariel. What do you feel?
I also feel just the warriorness, but there's a particular image that comes up whenever I see you. It's one with like the like the fur on the shoulder.
Boots with the fur? No, I'm
The
just
boots
kidding,
with
I'm
the
sorry.
fur, yeah. I think it starts with a P, but I can't remember what it's called. The thing that
Pauldron.
goes a pauldron, yeah. That goes over you, and I couldn't really see a shield. I do see a bird though. Like you do keep a bird with you, and you
Yeah.
release it from time to time. A falcon of some sort. But it just feels very defensive. And like in a good way, right? It feels very defensive if you are standing your ground. You're defending your stronghold.
I love that. And let me feel out. Ariel, you're participating in some balancing as well. And I feel though that it is your responsibility within it is less ingratiated than it almost like the feeling of almost spiritual charity comes to mind. I almost feel like that you come and do this a lot for different bloodlines. Danica, I saw you nodding, so I'm very curious. I'm going to pivot to you.
Well,
What do you
I
feel?
immediately saw like almost like water, like rolling over
Yes.
the earth, like cleansing,
That's
like,
what I was feeling. Yeah.
yeah, it's exactly. And that's funny because when she said bird for you, I was like, I saw the bird too. Like, so it's like, yeah, it's almost like you're here to like cleanse and like smooth out things
And
for,
release them.
yeah.
No, I love that. And it does, again, it feels like you're so primary over any, like, because it feels, I would say, like, for myself, for Melissa, and I feel almost like we have a little bit more skin in the game. It feels energetically on the bloodline side of things. And I don't feel that around you. It's not like you're not connected to your family in any way, but it's almost just like, I think that you do this a lot. Like, I think that you probably come in to new bloodlines more frequently than I would say.
That makes sense with what I was feeling, because when I tried to go up through the bloodline like I did with Danica, I couldn't. Like I got into a stream and I was trying to like claw my way
Interesting.
upstream. And all I could feel was like, okay, this has to be a cleansing metaphor, but I wasn't feeling necessarily connected to a lineage. So that might make sense. Like if that purpose is to come in and cleanse, then your wasn't associated with a long-standing single bloodline.
And it also explains some of the reluctance that I've always felt around like you being contracted to be here. I feel like you look at those very much like, yes, I know. It's not, you're just like, yes, this is what I do. This is the work.
I guess. And then if I internally say shout out, if I'm high-fiving, I'm just high-fiving myself, right? Because it doesn't go back far enough. Yeah.
Your team, because again, right, we got the soul contracts, and then what we're doing is we're fine-tooth combing it almost. We're trying to figure out what's the body, what's the vessel, and its certain diagnoses, and then what's because our soul comes with a larger and more clarified version of what we're talking about, I think, really. And what do y'all feel around me? Just curiosity.
There's definitely something about you coming from a long lineage. Like, I feel like it's like long, like it goes way back, and it's like teacher, teacher, teacher. And it's like wisdom, wisdom, wisdom. Like I'm being shown you like teaching about like the constellation and the stars. And then I'm seeing you like being like Pocahontas, like sitting down, everybody's in a circle, and you're like teaching all the people in the circle. Like,
weird.
Yeah.
I love that though. Thank you.
So, and I'm seeing, I think that is kind of the that's part of what I was trying to pick up on. Basically what I'm seeing is like, yes, you're from this bloodline that has its purpose, but unfortunately it has been persecuted, and teachers and people of knowledge have always been persecuted. And so I feel like that what you're doing right now is teaching. There's knowledge, there's this kind of knowledge that is a little like not always accepted, right? And yet at the
not
same
always
time,
right. I admit that too.
Yeah, and at the same time, you are trying to heal. So it's almost as if what you're doing now is going in the past and healing the past while you're doing what you do now.
Interesting. And what do you feel, Ariel?
Well, I guess we're just taking it back tonight. One of the underlying currents that you have is just running, but in a sense that you just need to keep moving. And I don't know that you've ever really felt safe anywhere. And if we go with the persecution, I mean, that's a 100% reason to never feel safe, is because you're just always having to look over your shoulder of when is this going to be over?
And always keep moving.
And always keep moving. And it brought me back to also, if you can recall, when we were looking back at a time that you didn't have a tongue. And so you were just like in this groupie that can't speak. And so you're having to write this language you're having to create a language that doesn't exist. And that would just be your wealth of knowledge that you do have, and just continuing to spread it.
That is fascinating. Thank you guys. I always love the work that we do. And I do feel what I am sensing around me right now is an enclave. It would have been privatized. It would have been very, and it feels, there's a weird aspect of like a dandelion in the wind. It's like there's almost no guarantee that it's going to go well. It's almost like we all take the leap with no, it's just weird. It just feels displaced. So I resonate very strongly with the feeling of displacement. And of course running too, because I would say one of my worst traits is my desire for true escapism. Like that's a real thing. I have to be like, nope, this is what we're doing. You gotta be present. Okay, let's look into, okay. So we're on to the private personal things. And the first one up is, let's do Danica. So I'm just going to shoot right off the bat because I felt this so strongly. Part of it wasn't that the family car?
No, that was my car.
Was it driven around by him, or did you just get it?
No, I got it last April. Wait, two years ago in April.
Well, okay, so the reason I'm asking that at all is I'll go to the straight point. It feels like there's a clearing of the past. There's something about like this is to go as well. And the other thing about, you were asking about the time. So you have a lot of internal decisions to be making, and you're also about to be exploring a very spiritual experience. This trip for you is in a lot of ways you attempting to align to something or to get clarity on something. So of course, anytime that we go on a spiritual journey, we would fast, right? And so one of the things I feel is almost like you're going into a little bit of a fasted state, mentally and emotionally, if you can. to sort of prepare your energy to receive as much as possible. But that's a benefit of this time. It's not the reason it happened. I feel like if you had to look for a reason, it's more about clearing, and it's something, and it's nothing that you're balancing. Because the other thing I check for is like, is there any balancing of PTSD by how you lost your daughter? And I'm not feeling there's a connection there. Like, it just feels like, you're going to get something you really want after. I don't know what that means. Because they're issuing you the right. You're going to be able to buy a new car when you get back, right?
Yeah.
It feels like because I don't feel like you're going to be under any duress or strain from this. Let me put it that way. But I do feel that you should be waiting until you return to make that decision. It's almost like there's more clarity that will come to that decision or whatever you're going to do with it then. And it was also, there's a little bit of, it was intended to shake you. There's a little bit of a test with it as well. So of course, right before a big jump into elevation, what do we always have? A test. How are you going to handle something that you didn't want to have happen? And are you going to allow yourself to lose yourself because of it? And if the answer is no, which I feel it very strongly, resoundingly is no, there are other aspects of, because I feel there would have been a timeline if you hadn't evolved where you might have canceled your trip and just attended to this. And that is truly the test. So, Ariel, what do you feel?
I was also feeling that you should wait until you get back to buy your car. And I'm wondering if it's because you'll find a better deal on the car, or if it's because you'll get the one that you really want. I feel like in this time, you'll feel pressured to buy something just because, you're going out of town, and what if they don't have one when I get back? So if you wait until afterwards.
They just said she's got her scooter. Do you have a scooter?
I do. I ride it all the time.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, they were like, she's fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing but it's also, I wonder if this is in a little bit of a push too to get your M license and get all that done.
Your motorcycle license.
Oh.
Just interesting timing for things, right? Melissa, what do you feel?
So yeah, I was feeling like the 3 weeks is a kind of like a respite in terms of like just getting prepared. And so I think it was interesting with having the accident, not that it was like a life-threatening thing, but there's that, oh, this could have gone really bad. And so it was almost as if like that was sort of like an impetus of connecting the trip, because it is spiritual nature. It's like this was that sort of lean in. And so it was giving you like a little bit of a respect of, like, what do they call that? Introspect. And so that's, they're kind of saying that, you do need this to just do that, not life in review, but introspection. And where do you want to go with this? And what is it that you're hoping to learn, and what do you want to manifest? They said that one specifically about the car too, is, you have this time to manifest what you want, and you don't need to rush. And they're also saying you don't need to overthink the 3 weeks. You don't need to be like, okay, here's all the things that I could do. They're just
if,
like,
if in
just
second
chill.
week you're a vegan, I'm gonna come get you. Like,
Yeah. That
we're
will
just gonna,
happen.
nothing
Yeah,
that,
no,
not that that's wrong, but that's one of the ways that you see people try to purify themselves, and then I'm like, girl, you need protein. What are we doing?
Yeah. And they're like, you're going to learn so much. There's going to be so much busyness in terms of like what you learn and what you incorporate and how you internalize this knowledge that you're getting. They're like, that's going to be jam packed. So you need this little bit of a rest.
And really sort out your auric field, right? It's like, learn how to, if you're uncomfortable with stuff, if you're unsure about things, learn how to place them outside of your body. The whole idea is for you to be able to go unburdened. And obviously we all have burdens, but it's about sort of extracting them and placing them in organization. So really feel out what's bothering you. It's almost like this is your time to manage and maintain your negative aspects to your auric field. Because you can take yourself with a clear auric field, the more can ingratiate when it gets there. It's almost like clearing out the junk. So thank you. They just said it's literally like stripping the paint off of something so that you can get repainted. The process of going is going to be, yeah.
You guys hit everything right on, like everything you said. Like I was feeling that. Like when I bought that car, it was in like a stressed out, like I just have to, like the whole thing, the whole energetic thing about it. So it is like a clearing away of that. And I've been like wanting to like clear out my old clothes and like everything. It is like a cleansing place. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, what a great time too. Like I can't do anything. I can go tear apart my kitchen and my bath. Yeah, that makes a purging. Good. Hell yeah. Your Ariel. So let's energetically get involved in this transport that happened. Will you describe it again for us because we were off air before?
Yes. So
I just wrote story time.
Story time. Okay. So I was at home sitting on the couch, as one does, and all of a sudden I had just kept getting these intermittent whiffs of incense. And I had asked the people in my house, I said, do you smell that incense? And I had to do like a check, like, do I have incense going? No. I hadn't burned any since this morning, so like there couldn't be lingering incense. And nobody else smelled it. So I had the inclination to lean my head back, close my eyes, and see where I went. And where I was taken it was almost like I was above it. So like I was watching everything that was happening. And on the left side were 5 black hooded figures. And then on the right, I'm sorry, did I say black or white? But anyway, there was one side had black and one side had white figures. And then in the middle, there was one red figure. And I said, I don't really recall, or if I was trying to fill stuff in, but I almost feel like in the middle of this half circle that there was like a slated table with possibly somebody on it. Again, I don't know if I was filling that in though. It felt very ritualistic.
All right, so I think the way we want to treat this is the first question I'll ask everybody is, do you feel that this was a memory or was she taken to a present moment? And was it in our dimensional state or was it in a different dimensional state? So Melissa, what do you feel?
Different dimensional state. This is something that she just got pulled to, not something that she experienced, so to speak. Like she wasn't in it, she was watching it.
But do you feel like, did that happen? Like, my point is, was it happening concurrent to that moment in our physical plane? Because I feel like it was.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And Danica, what do you feel?
It almost feels like her energy was pulled there because they wanted her energy there, but it doesn't feel like it was a place that she would have chosen to go
And
or
so
be
when
a
you
part
say,
of.
and when you say they wanted her there, because obviously I do not feel that they know who Ariel is, right? So it wasn't personal in that sense, but I don't disagree with you. So what aspect of her was being drawn forward?
I keep hearing the words clearing essence.
I was hearing purity, so very similar.
Well, and I was feeling the attempts to hijack the energy of a water goddess, like a water deity, which I do feel Ariel is a fractal of. Just like we all have our original sort of divine beginnings. And I've always said hers come from that, that aspect. So it feels very much. And also the reason that you accepted to go, because again, there is that component. You were not yanked out. Right. I feel that your soul made an elective decision. And I feel that there was investigation in one of the reasons you would have been present. It's almost like your soul needed to witness what was occurring. Obviously, you did not get utilized in any way. I don't feel that there are any tendrils that you took back with you. Nothing at all. But I do feel that you were like, well, now I need to know what this is about.
It was like I feel like a curiosity.
And you have and I don't feel it's a huge part of this lifetime for you, but in general, this whole aspect I feel and always have around you is that you do have this like relationship with high crimes from a spiritual perspective. You either mourn them, so you participate in the grieving process for whatever is occurring, or you are balancing the energy to take the edge off how dark, right? And so that's something that we all bear. That's something that we're all always going to be called to. One of the reasons that we might have visitation places where we go into a really deep place of darkness or a nightmare, sometimes we go there to balance out the energy, right? It's not like we're just there so that the dark side doesn't overtake. That's one of the things that we participate in. Those that follow the light. It's not really just specifically to us, but when you get summoned to those spaces, that's one of the things I feel strongly. So what does anyone think was happening in that experience?
I'm feeling like there was some kind of sacrifice for the purpose of hijacking a soul.
It almost feels like a teaching purpose as well, though. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like some of them had done that before, but there were others there that hadn't. And it was almost like a
initiation.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I feel as well. And I'm trying to sense around it the purpose. because I feel a little, I'm trying to grasp, there's this like slippery thing that Melissa touched on it. There is a little bit of the soul transfer energy that we were kind of talking about earlier, but it also feels willing.
Yeah, I hear the word gain. Gain, gain, gain. Don't know what that.
Gain, like GAIN?
Yes.
Okay. It feels like a vessel was being gifted, actually. That's actually what I feel. It feels like it was I just heard it was an honor
That
of the
makes sense
darkest form.
because I said sacrifice, but I didn't get like a death energy from that. So it could, yeah, that could have been like a gift, but a sacrifice of that person at the same time.
Yeah, I feel it's just, the dark underbelly of, right? If there's always the light, there's always the dark. And it's interesting just that the incense is what called you. I find that fascinating.
It wasn't familiar to me. It was like in the churches where they have the incense thing that they're waving around. It felt old. Okay. Well, I guess like with that, since then, I have felt a need to, I guess, fortify the boundaries of my house. I almost, like before I go to bed, like that's what I see. I see the four corners of my property, and like, I guess that is what it is. It's keeping the dementors out.
Well, and also too, just so that to add some relief to your energy, I heard very strongly you were not seen, so don't worry. It would have been a problematic experience if like one of them had looked up, because that does have some consequences. But again, you were not there. That's one thing we always have to remember too, is we are incredibly old energies and we're incredibly strong. So we are not the ones who are going to take ourselves into that energy unprotected, even though if I said, how do you protect yourself from that? You're like, I don't know. But our soul does. So that's one thing, is like, I don't feel a direct need to raise an alarm around where you reside or anything. But I do understand why that would make you feel that way. That's very jarring. But you do it in your sleep all the time. It's just weird that it leaked over into your waking, because I feel like almost all that you do in sleep is monitor. Like you really, I mean, I feel that, like, you travel and you view things. You're almost like a little bit of a logging energy. Like it's almost like one thing that I think is weird that I started to understand a couple of months ago is, if it's not seen by a collective in a certain way, it almost doesn't get logged in a way that is necessary. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Like, so there are those of us in spirit who are viewing the highest darkness so that it gets logged. It's almost like that it gets uploaded to the right halls. I don't know how to say that, but there is an aspect to where we do that. Ooh, that was a weird feeling. It's almost like you can now provide the GPS location of it to whoever you're working with energetically. And we are always working within teams. But because my next question to my guides was, why do we need to go do that? And they just said, because it's scouting energy. Once you have their GPS location, then we can send in angelic energies, or then we can send in certain things.
And the first time you told this story to us before we started, my thoughts, they were saying that you were cloaked, not necessarily like your guides were there with you, but you've learned how to cloak yourself. They would not have seen you. That fits in very well with what the narrative that Sophia is talking about, and it makes a lot of sense, because it is subversive work. It is finding out where they are, what they're doing. Like you said, how can we track them down? So it goes beyond of just like a record of what happens, and it is a little more proactive in terms of righting that wrong, I guess you can say.
Well, and if anyone's taken a tally of good and bad, what you viewed is not ideal for us on the light side. That's one of the other reasons you attended to it, was because it feels like somebody got a vessel that we were probably hoping didn't. Whatever that means, right? So there is a significance to what you saw. We just will never know it, because we don't know who is in the room. We don't know who got the vessel. We don't know which spiritual energy entered the vessel. But all I feel very strongly is, if we had a war room, we would have preferred that to not happen. For that to occur, we took some kind of L. It just feels like someone got what they wanted, and it's not great for the light side. Which I guess brings into the question, and I think this kind of can go round robin for all of us as well. I mean, I'm curious, what is my role? And now I guess we can go around too. What is my role in the spiritual warfare given the fact that I do feel very attached to the aspect of teaching and preserving the information, but I almost get this feeling of like the time for that is over. It's almost like I don't know. So that's one of the reasons why I've been feeling that in the coming years, still not yet now, but in a couple years, there's something I'm supposed to get done in that situation, and I don't know what it means.
What I'm being told is that you're in a sort of a period of training, and the associations that you have with the people that you are around was not a mistake. This is part of the awareness and the training, and sort of maybe like an initiation into this, to kind of understand what it is. And the end game here is you being able, maybe not necessarily taking down like negative entities, but learning how to shield, how to protect, how to counteract what the other side is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that you couldn't go in that direction, but I feel like there's a point where you're looking at how far down this do I want to go, and at a point you just say, you know what, I just want to protect. I don't want to go out and attack and neutralize right now. Just I want to understand it, and I want to put up the barriers where they need to be in the spaces they need barriers to be, and that is your contribution to mitigating that side.
And you feel that's the choice I will make. Interesting. And Danica, how do you feel?
So I'm being shown like a fence line, like a really, really, really long fence line. And that there's like, say you're walking along the fence line and then you find like people like attacking the fence, and it's like you're there to guard so they can't go over the fence, because you have the right to go over to both sides, is what it feels like. You have the right to like block the say negative things out of the fence, and then it feels like you're going along again and then you get to do it again. That's what it feels like. But it feels like that you're learning things right now to understand. I'm hearing the word ramifications of what could happen if you step too far over to one side, is what it feels like.
Yes, that's where I felt like that was a delineation of like learning what you could do versus what your comfort level is and what your goal is. And that's when you make that decision.
And how do you feel, Ariel?
I feel very much like a retreat, maybe in your future. I see them as like traveling. I don't want to fly feet, a traveling feet, but like FEAT.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was picking up with on also, I see you like moving around in these retreats, these places, and it's almost like you are setting your pillars, your beacons, and it calls others also. And I don't hear, it's all silent. Everybody has their eyes closed. I don't hear anything being spoken, but it's like a hive mind, I guess. Like if you have your mind and nothing needs to be said. It just transfers to other people, and it's almost like an awakening for some people at that point, for them to be the soldiers that are needed.
I was curious about that. Okay, that makes sense, because it feels almost like to me that I want to be more of a warrior in this world aspect than I am, and I'm not supposed to be. But I feel the siren call of it constantly. And I feel very strongly, again, like I know that that's not something I'm going to go deal with in a close quarter way, but it almost feels more fun. Like there's a part of me that really wants to challenge that aspect. And what's interesting though is, Danica, I want to touch back on something. You said you have a right to be on either side. Can you help me understand that more?
Well, it does feel like your soul could choose either way, is what it feels like. But it does feel like you choose more the light side, to defend the light side, is what it feels like. But you're so drawn to the other side that it's like you lean over that way, and then you have to learn like, okay, I went too far, or I can't do that, so I got to come back this way. That's what it feels like.
But there's almost when what I was thinking and feeling is there's almost this get too close and I'm too attracted to join like if I get so close to it, there's that like I really want to do this and be in this because of that whole like fight mentality. Because I feel that like that's where I am right now. But yeah, it's like if you get too close, you might feel like you're going to lose yourself in that side.
Well, and like Melissa, when you said earlier, like part of who you're around has something to do with that aspect. And this can sound weird, and I might edit this. I'll mark it in case I do. If I do believe, and I do believe that they are of a bloodline that is relatively typically fighting for the dark. But you're right. I mean, I know I still get scared of stupid stuff. So do y'all have any last questions around anything we've talked about?
Well, I do, and it's it's a little bit along the lines of what you're talking about, but to a lesser degree. And I have, since I was a teenager, I've always been interested in the occult. And so I'm always pulled in this direction in terms of learning about it, and a little less on the practicing and more on the knowledge of. So I don't know where I'm going with that. Like it is.
Well, I know
don't know.
exactly where you're going with it. Remember when I said in the bloodline there was some balancing? There is, to me at least, a significant evidence of some pretty successful dark mages in the bloodline. And so there is going to be a little bit of a muscle memory for you with that you priority sense.
Okay.
And so that's one of the aspects I feel will always call you. Then again, I also feel that there is some of the same stuff that's in my adopted bloodline was in, right? So we deal with these echoes. And that's so cute. They just showed you, there's also an aspect to your soul, nothing to do with the bloodline, that's very Snoopy. Because they just showed me like Snoopy the dog, but with a magnifying glass. And so there's a part of you that just will always want to know what's happening in the shadows. So it's not so much the bloodline isn't singing to you in a way that's really meaningful, but it's almost like if you went off the deep end and decided to go into dark magic, you'd be very good at it. You'd be naturally very successful with it. It's one of the guards that I would articulate we all need to uphold because we are very powerful and the choices we make do matter. I do feel this as well, and I actually said this to Taylor earlier, but whether you believe it or not, Melissa, I do feel that even more than me, of the four of us, you are the one who, should you choose to take the path, will be a little bit more on the aggressive aspect of the warfare. I do, and I feel too, well, what I feel is I do feel that Danica, you will probably shy away from it. I don't feel that you're going to really go, but I also feel that that's very much a strong suit of yours if you choose to remember that, if you choose to bring that through your energetic line. But I don't see it strong. Like, how we predict futures? I see that at like 20%. And the majority of what you will gravitate towards is the lighter things. But they're showing me right now a period of energy where you were ripping down strongholds. So that's part of the grid protection, right? It's not just let's lay the highways that are beautiful. And Ariel, I don't feel warfare around you at all. I feel more that you are I feel more that you're the soothing afterbalm for whatever is going down. My next question to my guides was, well, where are the warriors? Like, what do they look like? Like, who are they? And because it's interesting, because I'm wondering, like, how does that, if my role isn't in that, where are the ones that are? And they're kind of showing me like, well, it's not. I just heard one thing. They said they walk between the shadows, which I believe that. They're more occultedly trained, but in the light. It's almost like they, from a young age, there is a collective I'm feeling who is human, who is, they're just showing me like the throwing stars. They're showing me those like old style, not necessarily Asian, but they do feel a little bit Asian inspired. It's almost like a training ground of mastering spiritual weaponry. So it's almost like there's a whole collective that we don't even see. They are not even made aware to us. And they were saying, leave it up to them. I was like, you bet, I can do that. I promise.
So are we talking like people who just have normal day jobs and that's
No.
like, okay, so
I mean,
this is like people.
Well, there's two caste systems. If there's a caste system, and if I'm looking at the shit that I think is cool and fancy, they're obviously bringing me to that. So we're talking those that are raised in the process of doing spiritual warfare. But then they're also showing me the other side of this that we already do participate in, is what we do in our sleep time.
That's what I
So
was shook up.
Yeah. And
yeah,
I've just recently woken up and like neutralizing negative energy.
you are, yes, you have a very fiery relationship with that. And it's almost like, say that it's almost like you have the knowledge to burn from within you any of the darkness out of you. It's a very, you came with that. That's cool though. Because they're showing me, they took me to a place where the worst case scenario would be present. Let's just say that something came into your vessel. It would not be able to stay. That's why that's immediately when they started showing your veins on fire, and then you'd be fine again. Like, you have a very natural defense to that, which I think is really cool. Meanwhile, they just, as a joke, I don't have that, right? I have a draw to it. And I was like, I'll be strung up on a marionette waiting for y'all to come get me. I'm like, I got too close to the fire. I can't move my arms. So just, we all have our thing. Okay. Well, on that note, stay away from dark things. No. But we'll be back next week. And I do like the idea of us. Well, no, let's see if we can generate. So what ideas come to you for next week's conversation?
Indigo children.
Love
Oh
it.
yeah, I like that one.
Love it.
I don't
Star
even know
seeds.
what that is.
I love it. I'm going to put indigo children and star seeds as synonymous a little bit. Star seed. I just put star seeds.
Star steeds.
So we're talking horses. Star seeds. Danica, what about you?
I don't know why I'm being shown rainbows and unicorns and leprechauns and a pot of gold. I don't know what that means.
I love that. Lucky Charms.
Asking what that means.
I'm trying to see why that was dropped to you.
Something
Okay.
about magic and how to use magic.
Well, but to recognize it. Because in certain games, if you've ever played video games, Ariel, I know, like, when you, like, say there's a room, things will, like, glisten a certain way because you're supposed to go and open it. That's what I felt, because I was like, why those items specifically? And then they showed me a landscape of things, and then some of them were glowing with a gold hue around them and some weren't. And so that's what what we're maybe talking about is, they just said calling forward and recognizing energetic items and places.
Ah,
I like that.
Yeah, that's what I feel like was, if I unpacked that full thing, I feel like that's where they were trying to go. Because when I asked, are we supposed to look at the items themselves that you said, unicorn, leprechaun, and they said no.
no, it felt just like magic. That's
Yes,
what
but
it
I
felt
love
like. Yeah.
that. And it made me want Lucky Charms. And then, Melissa, what else? Because I put star seeds with the indigo children, so what
Okay.
else?
Psychometry.
Perfect. And then I'm going to say, they just made a joke. They just said magical basket weaving, but the reality of what they're talking about is more along the lines of calling those energies in, but then also how to weave with the natural magic. So very different than witchcraft, but it's almost, remember when I was in training with y'all, and one of the last things we kind of went through pretty hard was how to weave your own cords. Do y'all remember that conversation? It's a little bit of that. So it's almost like like the weaving process, the weaving and spinning, like on a wool, like spinning magic. Interesting.
What's
I
that
love
movie
that.
where he does that, where he turns it to gold?
Yes, well,
Rumpelstiltskin.
the Rumpelstiltskin
That's
or
what it is.
whatever. Yeah, no, that'll be a fun conversation. So I will see you guys next week, and I love you. I'm gonna drop off, and then we'll chat the off-air stuff. All right, love you guys. Bye. See you next week.